you what. I'll tell you what, when we talk about content neutrality, when we talk about balance, when we talk about freedom of speech, you have a platform like Telegram, whose owner has now been arrested. And we know that Telegram is used by terror groups as well, whether it's Hamas, whether it's Al Qaeda, whether it's Taliban, they've all used, and not just terror groups. You've got other, groups operating on Telegram, whether it's related to, say, piracy, film piracy, or there are charges of narcotics sale and organized crime being functional through Telegram groups. Now, when you talk about freedom of speech and content neutrality, these platforms argue that our platforms are open to everybody and anybody can use them. Where do you draw the line?
The line is drawn. Every country's context has to be taken into account. India's line is very clear. Our national security is primary, our local laws are primary, our public order is primary, and our democratic norms are primary. And if anybody is violating that, it may be the democratic norms, the freedom of speech norms in America and India are world apart. They cannot have the same standard. So we are worried about our local norms. The fact that something is allowed in France or in US or UK, or they have a geopolitical tension and they take action, that's their prerogative. Our prerogative has, and the stance has been there for the last 7 to 8 years, that it's our local rules, our local context, which is important, not anything else. And these giants are now realizing, I've always said this, they never had presence in India. They slowly started building presence in India from having employees. We were their largest market. We are by far their largest market. And they actually played India as a second fiddle. But they benefited from India. They never paid attention to India. But now all the things that India wanted from them, accountability, governance, better local governance, is coming back. And that is what we want. That as a country, that's how you safeguard yourself. And, the localization of, and they are big enough. They have enough technology. And as we go forward, I must warn, as we go forward, there's a lot of AI that is coming into play. There's a lot of other issues will come into play. We have to thank that we have a lot of public infrastructure in India. We have better policies that we can put some guardrails on them. Otherwise, they can run amok. And those are the worries. I mean, the worry is one side, of course, there is, these platforms exist from a social media narrative and a lot of other things. But there's also, competition and a local ecosystem of startups. There is a lot of implications. And they have really so far exercised their duopolies or, big tech powers and never really adhered to local norms. They have a lot of money power also. So I think, what this is showcasing, that they are not in Hindi mein jaise kehte hain doodh ke dhule. They cannot preach to us from a very high mantle. Yeah. They have to come down. They have to agree that they need to operate with India, learn from India. And so far, India has actually been very fair when dealing with all these platforms, giving them a parliamentary hearing. And our democracy works in a much more fairer manner. And I think the best hope for the world also comes from what policies and what directions India will give. You talked about Telegram. Now, I don't want to make a lot of this show about your show today about Telegram, but there's a lot of things that happen on Telegram. They have a lot of affiliated businesses, like their crypto mining, cryptocurrency businesses. This is a very dark web that operates. And I leave that comment on Telegram there, but they gained popularity because there was a time
which is what I'm saying, Arvind Gupta. These platforms allow all of these under the concept of free speech, under the concept of being open platforms. But where does free speech start and where does it end?
Absolutely, 100%. India has pulled up Telegram many times in the past. And if, terrorist groups and anti-national, non-state or rogue or non-rogue actors from other states are operating and using Telegram as a dark encrypted tunnels where we don't have access, I think we have serious issues. So they cannot operate under the garb of freedom of speech and do activities which are contrary to India's interests. Absolutely with you on that one. There is no doubt about that.
Okay, talking about Mark Zuckerberg, Arvind Gupta, he has, of course, said... Okay.
Let me You and your
Okay,
users
okay.
with one very important step.
If you have to go, Arvind.
No, I don't have to go. I'm just going
Yeah.
to give you one very important thing. That what we also have to see,
Yeah, go
that
ahead.
that India doesn't become, these platforms don't become, as I said, an extension of the state, and state functions into India. And so protecting our democracy, whichever administration we have, election integrity is very important. And I think what the media also needs to realize, what the activists need to realize, that what Facebook CEO himself has said, that they have operated under biases because of their political ideology. Today, why did Zuckerberg have to wait 3 years since the vaccine started to make this declaration? Because
Which
he's
is what
probably
I was
changing his
coming to,
political
Arvind
alignment.
Gupta. You know, the fact that the timing here is important. The timing where he's saying now that he comes up with this admission, it is important because it comes right in the middle of the US presidential election. But then
And
it
he's
all
changing his
boils down to the
political.
fact, should tech giants be even politically inclined? Were they ever
Absolutely
neutral
not.
spaces to start with?
And that is the point I'm making. We have always found this. When we say this, when we had an issue with, as I said, Twitter, YouTube in the past, Facebook, all of this, we've said that we saw a lot of political maneuvering of content. But a lot of people, there were parliamentary hearings, and people in the media called out that the BJP-led government is calling them for certain vested interests. It was not that. And I'm saying the point has been proven that we have now evidence that there was political ideologies dictating the kind of content, the kind of content moderation they were doing in India, the kind of throttling they were doing in India, the kind of user base increase or reach increase of certain posts, certain videos they were doing. We are kind of vindicated. We are kind of clearly, there is evidence now coming from the top. So no Facebook person can tell us, no, we don't have any political bias. We are ideology neutral. They are not. That is what this is proving, and that applies to a lot of big tech. Facebook has admitted it. There are others who are not admitting it, but they have that bias.